Hello and welcome to the morning Rabble. As you can see, I'm joined by Brian and Mark. How are you guys doing?
Very well, very well.
Good stuff. And also, good morning to everybody in the comments. Always nice to see all the good mornings in there to everybody. So, thanks for joining us yet again on a rather wet and blustery Thursday morning in sunny Scotland, as always. All right, we've had a bit of a chat about what we're going to cover for this week and next week. So, today we're basically going to touch on Leon King. And we'll also discuss a little bit about the same problems that Adam Devine and Alex Lowry are going to have in terms of the game times that we need. So obviously we'll start off with Leon and then we'll move on to the next thing, etc., etc. But we'll start off with Leon. So if anybody's got anything they want to say about Leon or anything they think is the right kind of thing to do, then just fire it in the comments and we'll pick them out. Brian, I'll come to you first. Obviously, Leon went through a spell when Connor was out injured and Ben as well, that he was basically playing every game in the league. He come on in every game or started every game in the Champions League. And now he's obviously kind of dropped back onto the bench. Is that difficult for him, or do you think because he's still only 19, he's accepting that, the sort of major partnership of Connor and Ben is always going to start ahead of him in the short term because of where we've been?
I think, well, as a professional footballer, I imagine it's pretty difficult because he's
Yeah.
went through a period of playing every game. I think it was just unfortunate when he came in because it was almost out of necessity rather than like when we should have played him. You like to play the young guys in certain games just to bleed them in and see how they do. And unfortunately for Leon, he was the only fit centre half at the time. He was lumped in huge games for Rangers against top quality teams, and to top it all off, he was playing with centre midfielders next to him. He wasn't even
Yeah.
playing with recognised centre halves. So an 80-year-old, 90-year-old kid was lumped in, not even knee deep. He was in the Pacific Ocean. He was just, it was such a shame. And the criticism that he got, I felt was just absolutely just scandalous. A poor 90-year-old kid, trying to learn his way in the world and football, and he's lumped in against, Mo Salah and all these guys and Napoli players, and it was so difficult for him, and it was really tough for him. But I suppose the break now, he'll be able to gather his thoughts and recharge his batteries and hopefully come back a better player.
Yeah, I mean, I was obviously down at Liverpool, so we were quite surprised that he was obviously starting the game that night. But I actually thought Leon played quite well down at Anfield. I thought he actually defended himself quite well. I think he obviously was at fault. I think it was for the penalty, wasn't it, in the end? But that was like 90 minutes of an attacking threat, and we were just trying to stop them from playing, really. It was tough to watch, but I agree. I'll come to you, Mark. Would it have been easier for somebody like Leon if he'd been playing next to Connor, because it would have been easier to come in and play with somebody that had been there, who's been at the club for several years. He knows what it takes to play for Rangers. Would it have been easier for Leon to come in and play next to him rather than who he had to during those injury problems?
Yeah, I think so. The young boy got kind of flung in the deep end, didn't he? Really, and that's a proper learning curve for him. To be the only fit centre half at a club besides the Rangers, playing Champions League games and stuff at 18 is probably all right. He must be thinking he was up for the challenge and something that he can aspire to. But as I said, just when that was the case, you are the main centre half. Got on with it is a bit hard, but yeah, I think that if you're next to a kind of seasoned centre half, then you're definitely going to be able to get talked through a game and kind of get guided as well. The fact that he was at 18, it was him trying to guide central midfielders and stuff like that. Then it's just madness, isn't it? But as I said, to be fair, the boy done well, really, really well. I don't think he done himself any harm at all with his performances. I think some of I've spoken about this before. Some of the abuse that he got, I think, is absolutely disgraceful. Um, this young boy, 18-year-old, still trying to learn the game, learn his trade, looking for support for his own fans, and getting dogs abuse for some of them is just blows my mind. Absolutely blows my mind.
I think
But
I think the sort of perfect scenario would have been like the old sort of David Weir, Danny Wilson situation where you had Connor next to him with Leon King. I think everybody was kind of hoping that scenario might have materialised, but unfortunately it didn't happen. And what happened.
listen, as I said, he's done himself no harm whatsoever, as far as I'm concerned.
No,
The obviously moving forward, I think that now that he's had a taste, I think he probably wants more of that. I think that he's a type of he looks calm and composed, and he looks like a little bit wiser than his age shows. But not as I said, you if you're that age and you get a taste of those big games, it's something that you're 100% going to want more of. Definitely.
Yeah, I think the problem for young players and that I don't know what you would say, like in a lot of other like sort of ways of the world, if you're an apprentice joiner, you learn your trade by experience. So like you work with somebody that knows what they're doing and you gain that experience by playing with them. As a footballer, you obviously go from being in the academy, playing under 16 football, then under 18 football. So you're learning as you go. Then you step up to the B team, you play some games in the Lowland League, and then all of a sudden you're in the first team. And in normal circumstances, as Brian and obviously Mark have pointed out, you would like an experienced head next to him. So if you've got somebody like Connor who can just like sort of cajole him during the game and talk to him and get him through these kind of tough moments, but he never had that in so many of the games, you know. And it's no offence to James Hands, he's in doing his job. You know, he's been told to go and play at centre back, but for Leon, he can't look to the side of him and see a very experienced centre half who knows what needs to be done. And that's the tough reality of being a young player at Rangers, especially as a centre back. I think sometimes in other parts of the field you can get away with it. But see when things aren't going well defensively, then everybody's eyes are on you. And that's the tough side of football. I'll come to you, Brian. Obviously, between now and the end of the season, Leon's not going to go anywhere. He's obviously going to be part of the squad. He might even start on Sunday against Partick Thistle if the manager decides to, make some changes just to give some players a bit of a break. Like so looking forward to even next season, the manager's already basically come out and said he would like another centre back. Which if you add into the squad, we might still have Ben, Connor, John Suter, and Leon. That's 5 now if you add the new guy in there. Is that maybe an opportunity then for Leon to go and play somewhere, even if it's only for the first half of the season or on a season's loan, just to maybe play, I don't know, like 20 games, 25 games, just take, I would say, let's have more experience basically of playing men's football at the top level.
there's every chance next season he could be seen as it could be seen as an ideal situation for him to go out on loan. As you say, there's 4 ahead of him just now currently. He's currently probably sitting, as you say, 5th in the pecking order. It all depends on, of course, John Suter's sort of injury woes, if he's going to get over them. Because at the same time, it's all very well saying we need him to get out on loan, but if we need covered at that position, then it'd be it'd be very unwise for us to let a centre half go when we need cover. So it would be ideal if he could go out on loan and play, as you say, 20, 25, 30 games for another SPL team. I'd prefer him to go in the Premier League because that's where he needs to be tested. Ideally, that would be perfect, but at the same time, it all depends on what Michael Beale sees as his. Obviously, he's got Davies and Goldson as his centre half pairing just now. He's got Suter on the wings. I don't think Hollander. I think we've said that to death. I don't think Hollander's going to play again. Obviously, and that's an unfortunate one. So I think ideally we'd like him to go out and play 20, 25 games, but it all depends on what the manager decides and the situation.
Yeah. I think the big point we're trying to make is also we're not sure to send them out on loan now. Like, just in case anybody in the comments, we're talking about next season if the manager gets in another centre half, which he's obviously already spoken about. So this is more kind of looking at the summer if Leon only plays another handful of games for the rest of this season. I mean, one of the things that we come to you on, Mark, as well, I mean, Leon actually has played a decent amount of football this year because of what happened to Connor. I think that was like 11 league games, 6 Champions League games, and then I think there's like a cup tie or 2 in there as well. So he's round about 20 games this season. So it's not outrageous, that he's only played like 5 games. He's actually played a decent amount of football in his first full season of men's football. But like, do you feel as though, like, sort of moving forward, he's going to need more than that? Or do you think another season of 15, 20 games would be okay for Leon?
I think on that, probably the young lad's got time on his side because he is still relatively young, especially for a centre half. So I think 20 games a season, I think, is a brilliant amount of game time, especially for somebody so young. But yeah, think about it. Talking about him going out on loan and where would he go and stuff like that. This boy's played more Champions League games at 19 than 99% of the Scottish Premier League. So that tells you the level that he's at. As far as I'm concerned, he could play centre half for pretty much any other team in that league. So I think he's good enough as well. I really do. But at the end of the day, as well, for us to play devil's advocate a wee bit, it needs to be good enough, and he needs to show that he's good enough. So if Beale thinks he's good enough, Beale will play him. It's as simple as that. So no matter what we think, what Beale sees in training needs to be him performing and him showing exactly what he's made of. So and he'll get game time. So the fact that probably he's not getting game time, I think probably when Beale come in, I think it was more about trying to get an established centre half pairing and probably give him a wee bit of a break, give him a wee bit of a chance to recuperate instead of everything being Wednesday, Sunday, Wednesday, Sunday. Do you know what I mean? So the boy played an awful lot of football in a very, very condensed period of time as well. So for me, obviously, if he keeps progressing the way he's progressing, which we can all see, then I think he's definitely one for the future for us. Game time wise, next season I would think if he can go to a Scottish Premiership team and play, as I said, the big thing, and we always talk about this, the big thing is you need to play. No point in, Brian said, there's no point in sitting on the bench for Kilmarnock when he can sit at the bench and play and train with better players. So he'll learn more sitting in our bench than he would sitting in Kilmarnock's bench. So he needs to go and he needs to play. And that's the fundamentals of it. If he plays, he will improve. I think he's improved massively since he made his debut as well. He's becoming a man, 19. He's starting to get bigger, growing physically as well, getting more physically strong and stuff like that. So I think the young lad's got a massive, massive future. For me, but playing games is the way you improve. So it needs game time that he maybe no get next season for us.
Right. I'll come to you on this point that obviously one of the guys is making. Nothing's next for Leon King. Rangers don't have any interest in youngsters. He will be sold and forgotten about. I feel we hold on to a higher standard than our first team. I'll come to you on that point because obviously there's been a lot of criticism of the club, and I think some of it is fair because obviously with the guys like Kai Kennedy, Josh McPake, just to name a few. I mean, we could go through another 3 or 4, to be perfectly honest with you, that are no longer at the club that a lot of people were excited about in terms of their quality at the age of 17 and 18. And maybe under different circumstances, those guys would have played. But because we just come back up to the top tier and we were obviously trying to compete, is that really an excuse, Brian? Or should we be giving young players the opportunity to play? Or is it just purely that winning every game is just so important that a lot of managers are not prepared to take that risk?
I think you've just nailed it in the head there. The problem you've got is that at a club like Rangers, you're expected to win every game. Yeah. And if the manager decides to play 2 or 3 youngsters and suddenly we don't play well and the result doesn't go our way, then you can just imagine the criticism that's going to come his way. But at the same time, I think I can't remember who it was saying. Was it C? I'll find it. There is. I suppose there is this sort of attitude where we kind of hold the youngsters a bit more of a higher bar because we believe they're Scottish and they're dyed in the wool players and they want to they're Rangers fans, and but at the same time, it's all about experience. And it's all about minutes, and the difficulty. It's easy for the likes of a St Mirren or a Livingston to give a 70-year-old, 80-year-old a game because the expectation isn't there to win every game. So it's fine. There's no pressure. But again, the pressure at Rangers is so intense and it's so big that unfortunately for a lot of them, they don't seem to rise to the occasion and seem to thrive off that sort of pressure. You had Barry Ferguson who came in back in the day where he absolutely thrived in the pressure and became captain very quickly at a young age, and he absolutely soaked up the pressure and loved it. You're needing guys like that who are thriving on pressure and thriving on big games and not going to be affected by a little bit of criticism. So it's a fine margin, but that's the difficulty, as you said. A manager who's willing to take a chance on the youngsters and not worry about the following criticism if the result goes against them.
Yeah. I think this is a point. I'll come to you on it, Mark. Is this the problem that Rangers are going to have in terms of like sort of keeping young players moving forward? It's fine because a lot of these guys are like Rangers fans when they grow up. So the opportunity to sign that contract, to have the opportunity to play for the first team, is a dream come true for a lot of these guys. In particular, I mean, I know Leon's obviously like a massive Rangers fan and he has a huge love for the football club. So, when he signed his first contract, he was obviously, like since then, he's obviously signed a new contract until 2026. So the club obviously see, the quality that Leon has. I'll come to you on the same point, but just add in, obviously, Adam, Devine and Alex to that as well. Is this a problem moving forward that if these guys don't feel as though they're playing enough or they're getting enough development or experience, that they'll just say, well, I want to go to another club? Is that, what will eventually happen?
Yeah, but you're probably right. I think that's the kind of natural order of things. I think a lot of the time, Brian touched on it as well, we're kind of victims of our own success.
Yeah,
And the problem is that we've already discussed it. We said that young boy Leon King get game time and he get dogs abuse. So what are we doing? Are we supporting? Are we supporting our youth and trying to bring them through and trying to nurture them? Or are we giving them grief because they're making a couple of mistakes in a game? So you can't do both. So as I said, it shows you the bipolarness of the fan base. So majority of us all want to see young boys doing well, but we're giving them dogs abuse because they make mistakes. Young boys are going to make mistakes.
yeah,
So this is the problem, trying to find that balance. And as I said, I love much the same as yourself, much the same as most is. To be fair, we all love to see young players coming on. We all love to see young players doing well. We all love to get excited about young, home based, homegrown, one of our owns coming through and playing, because we all dreamed when we were small about playing for Rangers, and so it's our dream they're living. So that's why. But as I say, on one hand you can't have that and want to see them do well, and then on the other hand go, well, he's not good enough, we're going to give him dogs abuse. So
yeah,
we need to try and be patient with these young boys. These young boys need to play, they need to nurture, they need to become better players. And this is the hard part. The hard part is that we demand success, we demand winning every game, we demand winning trophies, we demand runs in Europe, we demand. So at that point, there's that balance where how do you try and integrate young players into that when as a fan base we're demanding that we must do this and we must win this and we must. So as I said, it's a catch-22.
yeah,
We're trying to bring young players in, we're trying to blood them, but these young players need to be the finished article because they need to be in our first team, but they can't become the finished article because they're not getting a chance to grow. So it's just like Brian saying there, it's a vicious circle. So as I said, this is a hard thing to do, and let's face it, we all know how good Devine is, Lowry is, even Leon King is. We all know how good they are, but is 15 minutes at the end of a game going to make them a better player?
yeah.
See,
It's
touching on 2 points that's become in there, Les Zapaldo. There's times that past and present. the league's been over and we haven't gave youngsters a chance. You look at the Hearts game last season. We ended up the game, I think, was it 7, 8 youngsters on the pitch, and we gave them 3-1. Okay, the league was finished. It was the last game of the season. Hearts was, they were probably thinking about going to the beach as well. But there was Hearts still had a lot, first team players playing, and the youngsters did themselves no harm. But then you go to Malky's comment saying we're trying to win cups, we're trying to win leagues, and it needs to be first team players on the pitch, and that is the whole crux of the problem, as Mark's saying. It's a vicious circle. You're trying to give youngsters a chance, but at the same time you're trying to win cups and trophies. And if we put up a youth team or a younger team against Partick, for example, and we get beat, you could just imagine the stick he's going to get for that.
Mayhem, innit? Absolute mayhem.
It's finding a happy medium where you're playing maybe two youth players in the team and giving them a taste against Partick. That would be ideal for me. I'd have Alex Lowry and Liam King in the team on Sunday, just to give them a full 90 minutes, not sub them off after 60 minutes, play them 90 minutes against Partick, and just let them loose.
Yeah. Okay, we'll come to Adam Devine then. If we take, for instance, that obviously Ridvan's going to be back soon. Okay, so basically Adam's only going to cover at right back, which obviously this is another issue that goes back to Nathan Patterson, etc. But if we look at Adam Devine, what is his chances of playing a lot of games if the captain is still here? Because, I mean, let's be honest, you don't rest the captain that often during a season. He's in the team every week. There's an expectation that Tav starts every game, just the same with Connor Goldson to a point as well. So how difficult is that for Adam Devine to be there in training every day, knowing that he's putting in all the effort, he's doing everything he can, but come Saturday, come Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, whatever night we're playing in Europe, he knows he's probably going to be on the bench. How difficult is that, Brian?
Extremely difficult. I mean, as you say, the person playing most games or pretty much every game is the captain.
Yeah.
and as I think we discussed on that debate show we had there night in the members show, when you see the numbers that James Tavernier is producing, it's extremely difficult to not play him. And I think if Adam Devine was a left back, I think we all know that he would have played far more games than what he has now. It's just, unfortunately, his position is, a right back where James Tavernier plays. And I mean, the only other thing that you could do is you could play the captain further up the pitch, as a right winger, and you could play Devine as a right back, and you could play it like that. But I mean, that's just playing with, that's just an idea I'm thinking about. But to actually not play the captain, you can't really do that, and it's just unfortunate that that's Devine's position.
It's just horrible. I mean, like, that must be, I think between him and Connor, it must be two of the worst positions in the team to try and get in ahead of them, because those guys in the main touchwood, they don't really pick up that many niggles over their Rangers career. Right, Mark, I'll come to you. Alex Lowry, obviously, I don't think I really need to talk much about Alex. I've spoke about how good I think Alex is. But is he now in the toughest of the three because of Todd Cantwell, Ryan Kent, Malik Tillman, Tom Lawrence, Yanis Hadji? We could probably add another one or two players in there, to be honest. Is he actually in the toughest spot in the whole team now to actually get game time?
Massively. Absolutely massively. We know he's a good talent. We know what he's capable of. And I don't really know. You'll maybe know a wee bit more than me, Willie, but I think that probably Bill, I get the impression from Bill really, really likes him. But I also get the impression that Bill thinks he needs a kick up the arse. I think he's publicly challenged him a couple of times. And I don't know whether it's an attitude thing. Is it maybe a case of he needs to go somewhere where he's getting changed in a cold changing room where it's 9 foot by 9 foot by 9 foot changing room, and his stuff's wet and he's having to wash his own gear, and do you know what I mean? So maybe to give him a wee bit of reality check. I don't know, but for the talent that we've got in that position, he's going to struggle massively. And the problem is that it's only going to be getting harder because the likes of Hadji's on his road back. We're probably, I would think, going to sign Tillman full time. Cantwell, awesome talent. Probably for me, I think Kent's going to go, but I think Cantwell's probably the replacement for Kent. But I would love him to stay. So if he stays, yet again another obstacle in his way. So very very hard. As I said, he's a talent, and to kind of push some of them to one side, which most of them have got like maybe 4 year on them for a start.
Yeah.
One of them especially Cantwell, Premiership. So I think that what he needs to do is he needs to knuckle down. He needs to try and learn for these players, and he needs to try and fight and improve. It's hard. It's really, really hard. Like we've already said there, you come back into you come trying to get 15 minutes here and there or 10 minutes here and there's no really going to improve you as a player. Is his game time going to be limited next year? For me, yes, but also if he proves he's good enough, so the likes of rather than him bringing on Wright, Lowry could, if he's playing himself into the manager's thoughts, then rather than bring him on, they bring Lowry on. For me, that's where I see Lowry next season, and for him to then come on, few decent performances, and then maybe kick on to possibly starting games. But as you boys know, this young boy's got the world at his feet, absolutely world at his feet. He's got all the talent in the world. He's got everything in his locker. It's just up to him how much he wants it. And realistically, and most of these young boys all over these academies, all over Britain, it's really about dedication. And most of them have got the talent. It's just really about the mental strength and the dedication that they put in and how much they want it. That's the difference. And that's how these players go from being a massive young talent to actually being established first team players. So as I said, I can see his game time next season being limited, but I think that it's in his own hands, very much so, and it's up to him. As I said, he's got a lot of really, really good players in front of him, but things change, people get injured. Do you know what I mean? So, but he just needs to get his head down and work hard and dedicate his life to the game, and he'll get the rewards because he's got the talent to do that.
I'll ask both of you, do you think Rangers missed a trick in not putting him out on loan for the rest of this season?
Yeah, well, I think I said that on numerous pods. That was my viewpoint, especially the fact that Hadji come back.
Yeah.
I felt like that was an important part for Alex to go out and play. You know, whether Alex decided in the end he didn't want, because we'll never know the truth of that. You know, whether the club have had these offers and they've said, look, Alex, the offers are there. If you want to go and play, that's fine. But then maybe Alex has just chosen to stay. So, you know, yet again, we don't know that. But like my preference would have been that Alex went out on loan on the second half of this season.
For me, the perfect one for me would have been St. Mung. I
Mhm.
think that would have been an amazing move for that boy, and he could have kicked on for there. I think that
Yeah.
if that was something that they could have done, because St Mirren have got a good setup, cracking wee stadium, and they're starting to play football the right way. So for me, that would have been a masterstroke, and I think at this present moment in time, I think St Mirren needed a player like that. So I think it's a massive miss because as I said, I think it would have been a really good fit for St Mirren.
Right, we'll touch on some of the comments in the chat. McCleary asking about Yilmaz. I think the last update from the manager was about 3 or 4 weeks. He reckoned he
Yeah,
was going to be
it's
back.
I think
So
it's the worst. It's a grade one
yeah, I think it
tear.
was a pretty serious tear that he
So
had. So
yeah,
yeah, I think there's still another 3 or 4 weeks with Yilmaz. So it might mean that Adam might come in for Borna in the party game rather than Tav potentially, but we'll obviously need to wait and see that one. What's that? Just pick up on this one. Heller saying, if Lowry doesn't get the minutes over the next few months, do you think he'll go in the summer? I think, as we've already said, I think for one or two of them that if they don't get the minutes between now and the summer, then a loan is a must next season because you can't have players stagnating. You know, we've seen that with Stephen Kelly, and look at what Stephen Kelly's doing at Livingston now. You know, he's added a lot more goals to like what he already had, which was a lot of technical ability and the way that he plays the game. I think that's maybe 5 or 6 goals now for Stephen from central midfield, which is a good turnover for a young player who's just moved on. And I'm a huge fan of Stevens, but we'll not go through all that again. We've also got Brian saying, I actually think McCrory should. I don't know if that's the same player we're talking about, because obviously Ross has left, but we're talking about Robbie in goals. Then I think Robbie, it sounds like he might get a chance between now and the end of the season, and I think potentially Sunday might have been a wee sniff for him, but I think with him being out injured, that probably holds him back, and it'll probably be John McLaughlin or Alan McGregor that's in goals. McCleary bringing up, Devine is a right back, Yilmaz is a left back to push Bonner to take the position, not putting a right footer at left back. Yeah, it's never ideal, but just at the time, obviously, Adam had to play in that position. Bonner wasn't back for the World Cup, and I thought Adam actually did a pretty good job there, but Adam is obviously a right back. That's his primary position. That's where I think the club see him as well. Caroline saying she thinks that Alex will struggle to get minutes. I do agree with that, and I think that's where come the summer a big decision will need to be made. Paul saying the same. Lowry is good, but when will they play? That's 100% what we're trying to touch on, mate. It is a huge issue in it, and it's only the manager and the player in the club that can decide that. Stephen, Lowry will find it easier to get off the bench than King or Devine, which is fair enough. How often do we pull a defender off when he's not injured? That's so very true. CGM, Hadji would be the one I would move on in the summer. Won't happen, but I see Tillman and Cantwell ahead of him. So that's obviously no ideal for Alex, clearly. CGM, everything Mark just said at this time last year, the season has been a various reasons of disappointment. I think the injury obviously didn't help Alex. I mean, that was a shocking tackle that night and the game, and that really pushed Alex a little bit back. Caroline saying she agrees with Mark. I think Alonis at Mullen would have been a good one. And I do agree. I think that would have been decent. I think if he'd played the last 15, 18 games, whatever it is in the league, it would have been ideal for somebody like Alex. But I say we'll never know if that was the club's choice or Alex's choice to stay. These things will always remain private. But I think the one thing we take for this whole sort of debate that we've had this morning is that we all want the young players to play. We want to see Alex, we want to see Adam, we want to see Liam play. And because at the end of the day, as Mark pointed out, I mean, I grew up wanting to play for Rangers. I was never good enough, So it's amazing to see Leon and Alex and Adam and many of the other players over the last couple of years that have had that special opportunity to pull on that Rangers jersey. Mm-hmm. I mean, speaking to some of the parents a couple of the times, it must be really emotional to see your son play for Rangers, and I'm sure it's the same for any of the mothers with their daughters who might end up playing for Rangers ladies in the future. Yeah. So I think the big thing for me is that let's just get behind the young players. When their opportunity comes, just show a bit of patience. Mm-hmm. I remember a young Alan Hutton making quite a few errors. I remember when he broke his leg because he made a really silly tackle in the halfway line, I think it was. And a lot of people were very critical. Look at the money that, that Alan Hutton made us. Nathan Patterson made some problems for himself during COVID where he got caught up in one or two things. The club ended up making £12+ million on Nathan. So the development of young players has to continue at a club like Rangers. We're the same as everybody else. We want to see the young players develop. We want to see the young players play. And hopefully that will come between now and the end of the season and moving forward. But just want to thank everybody for joining us. That's another 34 minutes in the bag. So really appreciate all the comments, all the chat. And I hope to make sure that you join us again tomorrow, where we'll touch on some of the players that are actually out in loan and whether they have a future at Rangers. And we'll also touch on Ridvan Yilmaz as well. So join us tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. and you can join in the chat again. Thanks very much for joining us, and we'll see you all again soon. Cheers.